Welcome to Women Working in Wealth from the American College Center for Women in Financial Services. Join us as we showcase unique career opportunities and dispel myths surrounding the financial services profession through conversations with industry leaders.
Hello, and we are so excited to have you here for this week's episode. I'm your host, Lindsey Lewis. I am the director and chair of the Center for Women in Financial Services at the American College. Today, we have the honor and privilege of being with the youngest ever Investment News 40 Under 40 recipient, Akeiva Ellis. Akeiva is an alumna of the college. She is currently working as the financial education specialist at Ballentine Partners, also while spearheading her own financial literacy platform as the founder of the Bemused. You can find the Bemused on YouTube and other social channels. Let's get started with Akeiva. Thanks so much for being our guest today. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing so well today and I'm very excited to be here.
We are thrilled to have you. We are fangirls over here of Akeiva for sure. So just to get started, I love to have guests tell us about themselves as well as where they're at in their career journey.
Yeah, so I am Akeiva. I am both a financial planner and a financial educator. I work, as was mentioned, as a financial education specialist at Ballentine Partners, which is a firm serving high net worth individuals and families out of the Boston area. And in my role there, I work with a few client families in an advisory capacity, but I also do financial literacy work for our next gen clients, as well as my involvement with our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts at the firm. And then outside of my 9 to 5, my 5 to 9, as I call it, I co-run a financial education brand with my husband called The Bemused. And I'm also a CFP Board ambassador, which means that I write and speak on behalf of the CFP Board. That's a bit about what I do. And I've been in the industry going on 4 years now.
That is a lot on your plate. We would love to hear about your money story and how it shaped you personally and professionally to get you where you're at.
Absolutely. So my journey into this industry really began as a high school senior when I was filling out the FAFSA for the first time. And that process really just exposed how much I did not know about money at the time. I come from an immigrant household. My parents had both migrated here from the island of Tobago in the Caribbean. And we did not talk about money openly growing up in the household. I didn't know anyone in my personal circles who worked in the financial planning industry. I still don't actually. And so I didn't have any role models. And so during that time, I was coming to grips with just how much debt I would need to go into to complete my degree and those kinds of things. And at the same time, everyone around me always seemed to be struggling with money. And I just couldn't understand in my brain at the time why things were the way they were and why everyone was struggling. So at that point in my life, I knew I wanted to study business, but I didn't know exactly what sector of the business industry. So I thought to myself, there must be a profession out there where you can help people with their money. So naturally, in true Gen Z fashion, I took to the internet and Google became my best friend. I went down the rabbit hole of searching careers where I can help people with money. And that's how I learned about the financial planning profession, the CFP board, et cetera. And that's when I decided that I was going to become a financial planner.
Wow, what a experience and a journey thus far. You mentioned that you hopped into this career because you really wanted to help people. So maybe walk us through your financial literacy platform called The Bemused. You have your YouTube channel with almost 10,000 subscribers. So tell us about how the evolution of The Bemused came about.
Yeah, the Bemused was really a passion project of mine. Of course, working at Ballentine, which has been an amazing experience. I've learned a lot there, and we serve the ultra high net worth market particularly. And I wanted to have an outlet to serve people who were more so like me, people of color, younger people, people who didn't necessarily have as much exposure to the financial services industry or just to money generally growing up, which is also why I have such a strong passion for the DEI space, and I infuse it into my work. And, everyone doesn't have the same exposure, access to wealth building resources, and I wanted to help, and I want money to be an inclusive space. So that's really what drove me to create the Bemused. Went to my husband, my then boyfriend, now husband, with the idea. He was so on board with it, sold about it. And so we started our channel together in April of 2018. Since then, the brand has really grown and scaled to a lot of different areas, but our core mission is to drive financial education. So yes, our main platform is on YouTube, where we post money-related content on a regular basis, including lots of videos about our personal finances. For example, we share net worth updates every single quarter. And whenever we have a big financial decision to make or go through a big financial process, like when we bought our home last year, for example, we share all the juicy numbers. Our subscribers can rely on us for that, for the transparency. We're very big on transparency because that's something we didn't have growing up. So we want to be a resource for others. In addition to that, we have a financial education course that we have available for people who want to go a little bit deeper than just, free YouTube videos online, as well as speaking engagements and workshops that we do for various organizations. So that's what we do.
I love how you're putting the transparency in money. It is something that is so guarded and so, not talked about in relationships, let alone with friends, right? So one thing that really stands out to me is that you started this project with what was your boyfriend then, but now is your husband. So what is it like to work with a spouse or a partner on a project like this?
It has its challenges, but it's honestly a lot of fun. I love the feeling that we're building something great and impactful and meaningful together. I think that's my favorite thing about it. We did have to work through some of the kinks, of course. One big one was setting boundaries between work time and personal time. Of course, we both have full-time jobs, and we're working on this business on the side. And then you have to also find time just to connect with each other as a couple, right? So we had to work through a lot of those boundary setting things and issues. And my husband is a lot better at that than I am. I would bring up work stuff all the time at different points in the day. So we had to learn to really be intentional at establishing, okay, this is work time, and then this is time for us to connect as a couple.
How key is it to set those boundaries? One thing you mentioned is that you both work full time. So I am curious how you balance, or maybe another word, integrate your 9 to 5 and then what you call your 5 to 9, which is this passion project called The Bemused.
Yes, I was going to say balance is a pretty strong word. I like integrate better. But really, it's trying to put, systems and processes in place so that I can be efficient with my time. We both can be efficient with our time and really focus on the activities that are going to really move the needle for the business. And again, my husband is a lot better at that than I am. He's really good at keeping us in line and keeping us organized, and so that we can make efficient use of our time and focus on where we can make the most impact.
So then maybe let's take it to your 9 to 5 job. So you started this career in financial services, being a next gen woman and a person of color. What do you feel like is the business case for any young girl that's looking to enter this industry if they are Gen Z or a person of color? Like, why financial services?
Yeah, I love this profession, honestly, because it's a helping profession at its core. We think of lots of other professions out there as being helping professions, whether that's in healthcare or other kind of stereotypical industries, but money and finance is one of those professions as well. Money touches virtually everything in our lives, right? And so it's sad that so many people don't have the exposure and the access to the knowledge and the advice that they need to navigate money decisions and economic systems effectively, and the ripple effect that has on entire communities. So I love being a part of this industry because I'm now in a position to be a resource for others and teach them what I've learned. And what I also love about this industry is that there are just so many ways to carve a lane for yourself. I'm in a pretty unique position because my work scales the extreme ends of the socioeconomic spectrum in a way. In my 9 to 5, I'm working with the top 0.01% of American wealth holders. And at the same time, I'm helping lower and middle class individuals with the work that I do through the Bemused. So it really just is an industry where you can have a lot of opportunity and a lot of places to carve a lane for yourself and a focus that you can have within the industry.
Thanks so much, Akeiva. Now let's take a quick break.
At the American College Center for Women in Financial Services, we're promoting the advancement of women in the industry through research, education, and awareness. Become one of our Women Working in Wealth ambassadors, keep up with our latest news and events, and learn how you can help break the bias at womencenter.theamericancollege.edu.
Let's hop back into our conversation. So my question for you, being a next gen woman in this space and, really trying to dispel some myths around financial services, Have you experienced any barriers in the industry from prejudice that stem from either your age, your gender, your race? That's a heavy question, but give us your thoughts there.
Yeah, I mean, of course, there have been microaggressions over the years, small remarks here or there from various individuals, but I don't let those things necessarily affect me. I think the biggest barrier has truly been myself, my own self-doubt and imposter syndrome, my own internalized ageism, racism, sexism, whatever you want to call it, that really has held me back. So it was really getting past those limiting beliefs, I would say, that was my biggest barrier personally.
That makes a lot of sense. So maybe walk us through, you're the youngest 40 under 40. So there are some individuals that might feel that imposter syndrome based on their age. So maybe walk us through if you have any coping mechanisms or skills that you've put in place to help you overcome some of those challenges that come from those intrusive thoughts.
One practice that has been very helpful for me, something that someone recommended to me a few years ago that I've instituted, is keeping what I call a brag book. It's essentially this book of all of the things that I've accomplished, no matter how big or how small. The challenge is really just to write something on a consistent basis that I've achieved or accomplished, or some way that I made an impact on someone's life throughout the day that I can look back on and reflect on. And, really just let myself know that it's okay. I'm doing great work. I can see it. It's written right there in black and white. So that is something that I instituted that really helped me a lot with overcoming some of that, as well as honestly going to therapy is something that I started doing at the top of the year. And that's also helped me work through a bit of that. In addition to finding mentors, I have a mentor through the Association of African American Financial Advisors who I work with. That has been really helpful to have someone who has walked some of the same experiences and paths that I've walked and was really able to give me some advice with that.
What tangible outputs, right? We all can start our brag books today, which we're going to get into some of yours in a little bit. Therapy, right? Putting a priority in our mental health, as well as finding those mentors. So, like I mentioned, we're going to talk about your brag book a little bit today. You have a number of designations. So walk us through the designations you have and the role they play in your career as well as in your personal life.
So I do have a master's degree in financial planning, which was really my first major achievement or designation within the financial planning world. My undergrad degree is in accounting and finance, and although it gave me a great foundation, it definitely wasn't focused on personal finances, which is the area I knew I wanted to be in. So I went and did an advanced degree program that was focused on personal financial planning. And then while doing that, I was also doing my CPA. Like I said, I have an accounting undergrad. And so naturally, the next step was, let me go for my CPA. I'm going to have the credits, right, in education. So I kind of just went for it. And it really was a helpful step for me. There were certain things and crossovers into the personal financial planning world that were helpful. For example, the concept of the balance sheet always kind of made sense to me coming from that background, understanding business financials, because a lot of my clients tend to be business owners in the setting that I work in, having a fundamental understanding of taxes, which is, of course, probably the first thing people think about when they think about a CPA and the connection to personal financial planning. Although I will note that taxes only make up about 20% of the CPA exam. Little known fact, but just wanted to put it out there. But it was helpful in that respect as well. And then, of course, I got my CFP, my Certified Financial Planner designation. And that really gave me the comprehensive knowledge that I needed to serve clients well. And that's the designation that I recommend to anyone who wants to do comprehensive financial planning. Of course, I'm a CFP Board ambassador, so of course I must enjoy and really believe in the designation. And I think it's a great one if you're looking to get into the financial planning industry or to grow within the financial planning industry. And then my most recent designation was a Chartered Special Needs Consultant, which of course I got through the American College. And through this program, what it honestly really taught me, and one of my biggest takeaways, is just the use of inclusive language, regardless of who I'm speaking with. and an understanding of the unique issues that individuals with special needs and their families might face. So that was really helpful, not only from a technical perspective, like what are the planning needs, what are the solutions that we can offer as advisors, but also it extends into the broader scope of diversity, equity, and inclusion work. And that's what I really loved about that program.
Wow, what a brag book of designations and direction that you have in your career thus far. One thing that I loved in our previous conversation is that the reasoning behind, why you got your chartered special needs consultant, and it was because you felt like you had a knowledge gap, right? And you felt like, hey, I don't really know this, so I'm going to take that designation. So how can women that might feel like they have a knowledge gap take the step to pursue whether it's a designation or higher education? Like, what steps do you think a woman should take in that realm?
That's a great question. I think it really comes down to the individual. I think it's a mixture of your prior experience. Is there anything that crosses over into, this new industry you're trying to break into? And if so, you might go about it a different way than someone who is coming from an entirely different industry altogether. I think your personal time capacity and constraints also have a big role to play in that. Of course, if you don't have a lot of time, maybe a degree program might not necessarily be the best route for you, or you might try to go for a shorter designation program instead. So I think there are different factors to consider when making that choice. I think it's a great idea to speak to people who are kind of where you want to be and get their take on things, and maybe they can give you some advice and some resources on how to get there. And so that's really what I would recommend. It really is not a one size fits all answer. You really have to go about it the way that's going to work best for you.
Reaching out to those that have been there so that you're able to get there as well. So you mentioned that you are a CFP Board ambassador. So in a recent statistical release, less than 1% of CFP practitioners are under age 30 and are women. So it's a very few of us, myself included. So what are ways that the industry might be able to showcase a little bit more inclusivity for next-gen women that are wanting to pursue that designation?
I think that the industry really just has to keep an open mind and be flexible and be innovative. The world is a rapidly evolving, changing place. And if a structure is built to house a certain particular type of person, it will be hard when other people are trying to make their way in. So I think that there are, when it comes to a practical matter, different things that people can do, whether that is setting up opportunities, whether that's scholarship opportunities to get through designation programs or degree programs, or the different things that people might need to get a foot in the door in the industry, whether that is a mentorship program, whether that is a sponsorship program, whatever that can look like for your organization, that is a great way to welcome new types of people into the industry. I think also going out and speaking to, women, speaking to young women, speaking to college age young women, for example, is a great way to have people have that exposure. Going back to my story, it was not a field or something that I was exposed to growing up. And I feel like that is the case for probably many others. And so the earlier that we can have that exposure, whether at the high school level, the college level, whatever that might look like, I think the better that it will be in terms of increasing the pipeline. And then once they're here in our organizations, making sure that you are looking at your policies, your practices. Are they fair? Are they equitable? Are they inclusive? Those are the kinds of questions that we need to be asking, as well as what does our staff do right now to create an inclusive environment? Aside from just policies and practices, are our staff trained? Do they have the language? Do they have the skills that they need in order to create an inclusive environment for the people who are coming in?
What a powerful thought, right? Just creating inclusivity and having it be part of your company culture. Let's take a quick break.
Want to join our community of women working in wealth? Follow us on your social media platform of choice at Women Working in Wealth to stay informed about upcoming events, industry developments, and our fellow flock members making waves in the field. We hope you'll join us in our mission to break the bias.
My next question for you is, being a next-gen woman and a person of color, what advantages have you seen to having those attributes in being in the industry?
Yeah, that's a great question. I believe that when there's underrepresentation, there's always opportunity. So for me, I've created a lane where those identities have helped to propel my career. For example, on YouTube, there aren't a lot of people who look like me talking about money on the internet, right? So naturally, there is this, what's it called? This attraction to people who are like me, who say, okay, this person looks like me. This person has a similar background that I have. Let me stop and listen. And so I think that you can leverage your uniqueness, your identity to really be your superpower in the industry.
I love that. It's taking that uniqueness and skill sets that you have and making them powerful, useful tools.
Yes.
So my question for you next is, how can other women become thought leaders and innovators in the industry?
Well, first of all, I'm honored that you consider me a thought leader and an innovator. So thank you. I appreciate that.
You definitely are.
I heard someone say once that different is better than better. So again, going back to finding or creating that lane for yourself, if it's not a lane that's existed before, really sticking to it and finding or creating unique ways to have your voice heard within that space, using modern day resources to your advantage. Social media, of course, it's been around and I don't think it's going anywhere for a while. We have new platforms and different outlets popping up every day. Even existing platforms are coming out with new features and things that can be capitalized to promote your voice and get your voice heard. So I think using those modern day resources, niching down into your specific lane and going where no one is going really is my piece of advice for really becoming a thought leader in the industry.
So you did mention social media, and all of us practitioners are thinking, oh goodness, compliance. Oh goodness. What about the firm that I work my 9 to 5? So in our previous conversation, you chatted about kind of how you structured your contract with your current firm to work on Bemused. So maybe walk us through that, and also maybe some of the tools that you use for social media posting for compliance purposes as well.
That is a great question. Yeah, with my firm, it's always been a conversation, right? Even from the beginning, before I started the Bemused, I'd intended on starting it earlier than we actually did, But then when I started bringing it up with a couple of people, they were like, hey, have you talked to compliance? And I'm like, okay, I didn't know this was a thing. So now I'm going to go talk to compliance. And really from there, it was just like, we don't have a precedent for this, but that doesn't mean we can't. And so we worked for a few months on developing a social media policy for the organization because of those questions that I was asking, what I was trying to do. And it turned out in a way that it was beneficial for everyone, and I was able to spread my message while also staying within the compliance rules and regulations of the company. And so I think when you're working with people who have an open mind, who see the potential, who see the benefit, it works out really well. Even with all of the stuff that we're doing now, it's a pretty symbiotic relationship between Ballentine and between the Bemused. We are constantly sharing ideas and information with each other that really just helps to drive the mission forward at the end of the day. So I think that's really what it's about. And so don't be afraid to have those conversations, to find advocates and allies within your firm who can kind of help push the agenda forward and help you make the case to whoever needs to hear it. And just keep knocking on the door until it opens.
I love how you put yourself as part of that compliance process. I think it is so important for women to show up with their voices as well as advocate for what they want. And you have passion projects, whether it's for the ultra wealthy or for those that are learning their first things about mutual funds, right? So it's really nice. One thing that sparked my curiosity based on this conversation is, how did you come up with the name The Bemused? Might not strike us initially as financial literacy, but obviously there's a very large passion behind that name.
Yes. So I actually kind of regretted naming it that right after I did, because everybody's like, what in the world does that mean? So bemused is an actual word in the dictionary. It means bewildered or confused. And so we help young adults make sense of money. That's our tagline.
I love that. Making sense of money. We all could use that in our lives. So I have thoroughly enjoyed our time together. I do have one final question for you. My question is, if you could go back a couple of years, what advice would you give Akeiva or someone else that is wanting to pursue a career in financial services?
Yeah, I would tell myself to just relax. I've always been kind of an overachiever, and, kind of before I got into the industry, although I consider myself to be a woman of faith, I also felt the weight of uncertainty getting into a new industry. And so I would just tell myself to relax. It's all going to work out. It's all going to be great. You're going to get into the program you need to be in. You're going to be in the seats that you need to be in and on the stages you need to be on. And people are going to hear the message that you have, and it will impact people. So that's what I would say. Just relax. It's all going to turn out great.
I love that. For myself, who's an Enneagram 3 and an overachiever as well, relaxing is something that I'm learning how to do. So such wonderful advice. Well, it has been a truly large treat to have you, Akeiva. For our listeners, how can they stay connected with you after the podcast?
I am a very Googleable human. So if you type in my name on Google, I promise you will find me everywhere. You can find me on LinkedIn if you want to connect with me there. If you want to learn more about The Bemused, our website is thebemusedtv.com, or you can find us on YouTube at The Bemused. And if you want to learn more about Ballentine Partners, you can also go to our website, ballentinepartners.com, to learn more about what we're doing over there.
So Akeiva, thank you so much for your time. Wish you all the best. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us, and please leave a rating and review. To keep up with future episodes, subscribe to our show and follow us at our Women Working in Wealth social channels. This has been Women Working in Wealth, brought to you by the American College of Financial Services.